Hello, my name is Herb Gunther, and I'm representing Harris Hill residents against a Tim Hortons drive-thru at the corner of Main Street and Harris Hill. And I want to go over the one issue, the big issue that we have, and it's the special exemption use permit. So how does all this start? How do we figure out where we are and how we classify this? The first thing you want to do is you got to figure out what the zoning is for the property. That's usually the first step. And if we take a look at the zoning map of the town of Clarence, here it is. You essentially find your property on this map, and if we take a look, here's Main Street, here's Harris Hill, Nottingham Terrace, and the Harris Hill subdivision, and there's a property. You can see it's a light blue purplish color, so all you do is you zoom out. Let's go back down to the legend here, and it says traditional neighborhood. Well, what does that mean? What does traditional neighborhood mean? Well, we can go back to the code, and the code has everything in it in the kitchen sink, right? You can do vending machines and water and abandoned vehicles, all that. But what we really want to do is go down to zoning. And once we get to zoning, you're going to see there are a number of regulations under zoning. What we really want to do is we want to get to the zoning districts and see where our property is zoned at. So we go down the list here, you'll see eventually we get the traditional neighborhood. So we go to traditional neighborhood, and the first thing you want to do is look at intent. Now, if your property is within the traditional neighborhood, you need to meet all these standards to be in conformance with your traditional neighborhood. That's what the zoning board is supposed to do. Look at all these issues and say, yes, no, yes, yes, you got to change this. So what is the intent of the code? What did the town want this to be? The town said the district is intended to achieve the following: provide incentives to encourage adaptive reuse of existing structures. Great, we're using an old building, that's great. Allow and encourage mixed uses, accomplish and continue a sense of community, provide a walkable, pedestrian-friendly environment. Not a huge commercial district, pedestrian-friendly. Respect and preserve unique natural features within the district, like the little spur road for Nottingham. Provide design regulations that encourage compatible building arrangements, bulk form, character, and landscaping to establish a livable, harmonious, diverse environment. Discourage the demolition of existing structures that possess significant historic or other essential elements. Create a small town, historic style business district that limits large scale, out of character commercial developments. We don't want anything large scale in here. We don't want a large scale drive-through. We don't want a commercial drive-through here. But having said that, the next section says, what are the permitted uses? Can they even have a drive-through here? Can they even have a Tim Hortons? So we go down through the uses, personal service shop, retail shops, banks, community facilities. We finally get down to H, diners and small restaurants. So this use is permitted within the traditional neighborhood. You can have a diner or a small restaurant. And they have classified this as a small restaurant. Now here is where our problem with the town planning occurs. They stop right here. They say, that's it. It's a new use. We accept the fact it went from a bank to a small restaurant. And once that happens, once there's a change of use, you have to adhere to all the elements of this zoning code. You can't skip any of these issues. They all have to be met with. So, but what town planning said is, nope, it's an existing drive-through. We don't have to do anything like that at all. But before that, uses permitted with a special exemption use permit. The following uses are only allowed if they meet the town's special exemption use permit requirements and any overlay zoning requirements. Any permitted use in a new structure, we don't have that. Expansion of existing structure, we don't have that issue. Drive-through establishments, there it is, clear as day. Drive-through establishments. Again, planning keeps saying, oh, this doesn't apply because this is an existing drive-through. The problem is there is no drive-through. Nothing at all. They ripped it out. The bank ripped it out in 2022. It's been sitting vacant now for 3 years. There's been no drive-through for this. Well, we contacted the town and said, hey, give us a copy of the last special use permit for this. They could not provide it, and the town planning has admitted they have no special exemption use permit. All they have is a variance. So they have nothing on record for a special exemption use permit. But suddenly, this one, they're going to apply half the code, but not the other half. Yes, it's a small restaurant, and we'll look at those issues, but we're going to ignore this entire section 2259 special exemption use permit. This is our real huge problem with it. Okay, having said that, maybe if they did accept this special exemption use permit, we go through drive-through establishments. Maybe they meet all the requirements and it's still okay. So how do we know if this meets with the special exemption use permit? We go down in the code again and we go to Article 15, and Article 15 essentially says Sorry, keep going, keep going, keep going. And it says special exemption use permits. And here's where everything resides of what you need to do to meet the special exemption use permit to get what you want, right? So what's the purpose of the special exemption use permit? The purpose is to ensure the comfort, safety, welfare, property rights of the residents of the town of Clarence are protected. The town board may authorize and direct the issuance of special exemption use permit that for uses that require certain mitigating conditions specific to their design and operation. Such conditions ensure compatibility among building types so that different uses may be located in proximity to one another without adverse effects on neighboring residential uses and each other. This is exactly what they're supposed to do, these special exemption use permits. Protect the town residents. Under procedures as well, this fully falls under the town board. The zoning has no authority for special exemption use permits. What they're doing is they're stopping it from getting here. They're saying one isn't required, therefore it doesn't go to here. The town keeps saying our hands are tied because we can't get to this. That's not necessarily true either because they are the executive branch. They have been voted into office. The planning board is appointed. They could reach out, in our opinion, and take this from zoning and say, no, we'll take it from here. Thank you very much. But it says here, application to the town board for a permit authorizing a use indicated as a special exemption use shall be directly to the said board, to the town board, on forms provided by the zoning and planning department. The town board may refer the application to the planning board for review and comment. The planning board shall submit written comments to the town board on the proposal within 30 days of referral. The granting by the board of a special exemption use permit shall require the concurring votes of 4 members of the board in favor of the applicant after a public hearing advertised in accordance with town procedure. Special exemption use permit shall not be deemed to constitute a variance. A variance goes with the property for life. A special exemption use permit only goes with the use. Once that use stops, that permit is gone. Another thing that they ignore completely, this is basic planning 101. If the permit lies vacant for a year or two, it is no longer in effect. This property never even had one, which is again our contention. And shall not be conditioned upon appeal from a denial of a building permit or use by the building inspector. Yeah, if the building department denies it, you can't then try to go get a special use permit. That's not what this is supposed to be used for. For just cause, including but not limited to negative impacts to the health, safety, welfare, and property rights of the neighborhood for which the use is proposed, the town board has the authority to deny such special exemption use permits. The town board, besides its other requirements, can deny it still anyways if they feel it's not in the best interest of the people. Anyways, let's just say for argument we got to this point, we're all the way down here, maybe it meets all the requirements and really have nothing to argue about. We go down to drive-through facilities. There's these 5 criteria that must be met. These are not shall or maybe or if you want. The first one is drive-through windows and order boards shall be set back a minimum of 80 feet from any street or highway right-of-way line to allow adequate sight distance for exiting automobiles. So we need 80 feet. We need 80 feet from the window. Let's go to the plan and take a look at our Tim Hortons. If you take a look at Tim Hortons, there are windows in the center of this area right here. This is the building right here. And if you take a look at here, this dimension is about 65 feet to the right-of-way. They need 80. They are not in conformance with this part of the code. Conversely, 70 feet only to Nottingham Terrace. So they're not in compliance with either the Main Street right-of-way or the Nottingham Terrace right-of-way. It does not conform to this thing. This is one of our issues. Then, if you go back to the code again, drive-through lanes, windows, and order boards shall not be located along the street frontages. They are not. Vehicles must be stacked sufficiently to allow for traffic flow and vehicular access. A minimum of 8 vehicles per window shall be required. They meet that. Each vehicle space in the drive-through lane shall be a minimum of 20 feet in length. This is a problem because their current plan was looked at by Erie County Department of Public Works, and they basically said, you aren't showing your cars the right length. You need 20 feet per vehicle. You're not showing that. And the way you show that is very unrealistic, and we don't think this is going to work. As a matter of fact, we think this is going to back up into Harris Hill. And that was a problem for them. And they requested 2 lanes here. It was ignored by the town. Regardless, if we go back to the code, I draw those at 20 feet. Vehicle stacking lanes shall not block or interfere with parking lot traffic or access to parking lot spaces and shall function independent of parking lot aisles. They don't want any of this queuing interfering with any of the parking. Well, we have a problem here, folks, because if you take a look at this, yeah, everything's all nice and pretty if you come off of of Main Street, I'm sorry, off of Harris Hill, not a problem. But if you come off of Main Street, there's nothing to prevent you from coming off of Main Street. You're going to come right here. And as soon as you stack 13 vehicles, you're blocking the access to these 6 parking spaces. And then if you actually queue a few more, you lose another 3. Now you're left with what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spaces. 7, 8. They said they need a minimum of 9. They don't even meet the 9. So how does our zoning board let this happen? How does this site so small it can't handle? How did they let that happen? Not only that, but on top of that, the applicant said, "Oh yeah, we're going to do snow piling here in the winter because that's where we can put it." If you lose those 6 spots, what parking do you have left if I have all this queuing here? You have no parking in here at all. None at all because of this queuing line. And they completely ignored that. This is the big issue we have with the town right now is a special exemption use permit. We do not believe it meets the criteria for this, and therefore it should be denied. We don't understand why it wasn't denied. That is our biggest thing that we have with this. I'm going to have other videos talking about the traffic and about the DOT and Department of Public Works comments as well. Thank you for listening. Please spread the word here. We are trying to get this to not come to fruition. Please support us. Go to our website, Harris Hill Residents against Tim Hortons drive-thru. We need your support. We need some financial aid as well. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye.